if you are teaching in a classroom, you're already a professor. That's one. Now, you can have also the professorship title. And that one is something totally different.
So which one do you have? What makes a professor, a whole professor leaves America and decides to settle in Germany?
Why do you think that the people are allowing you to come in? They're giving you visas for what? And a lot of times from Africa, for a very long time, it was for people to come and then serve. A lot of times we also make a mistake as parents because we feel like when the kids go to school, the teacher is going to do their work. I'm an educator. So there's only few that I can do in the classroom when I see that child.
Someone that you are a mathematician, you're in financial field, and what's the last one? Economics, right? How successful can you say you are in terms of this business? I check out your product and I couldn't see it on Amazon. So alright guys, welcome once again to LapoteeTV. As we promised here, we're going to bring you the prominent Africans that are based here in Germany, as well as bringing stories to light. And today I have with me another prominent man here. I'm not going to say much since he's here with me. I just want him to introduce himself. So he's going to tell us who he is and we're going to take it from there. I personally know him to be Mr. Brilliance, but there's more to that. So keep listening as he introduces himself and we go. So Mr. Brilliance, it's nice to have you on LapoteeTV.
Thank you so much, Jay, for having me.
Yeah. You know, for somebody who is watching us right now and don't know you, maybe like I know, who is Mr. Brilliance? Let's take it from there.
Actually, my name is Kujo Sewa.Komlavi.
Oh, okay.
And I'm African from Togo.
Okay.
So it happens to be from Togo.
Oh, okay.
And I used to be, so after Togo, of course, as a young man, I went to New York City in the US to pursue my education.
Okay.
Where, after I finished, of course, I became a professor actually at the university level.
Okay.
So I've been in the US for almost 20 years, before I set out to be back on the continent. And then for some unforeseeable event, I had to come to Germany, Hamburg in Germany. So I've been here for the past 7 years, where with my family. So so that's what I'm doing. Yes,
that's quite a travel, but we'll get into all that. But first thing I want to know, what inspired you for you to decide to go into this your field of study? Because based on your biography that I came across, you said you studied mathematics and economics and something about finance. So what inspired you for you to take that trajectory, let me ask?
I should tell you also is that my mom, for example, is a teacher.
Oh, okay. Now I see where it's coming from.
Right. So so it's so from there, as a teacher, as a child, of course you have to. Education is number one in the house, and then and my father also is a scholar, and of course my father also taught at some point in university in Togo as well. So who is used to be an economist. So when it comes to education, so that was put at the forefront for all of us to begin with. And then after that, of course, then as a young person, as you go into school, then you're learning different disciplines. Some of them will stick out for you, and math was definitely one strong suit, of course. And then I always, like finance, the word of banking and things like that. So, so once, I got a chance to go to university. So those are the kinds of things that I wanted to do. So it's just, it came out, I would say it came out naturally at some point, but at the same time, of course, you have to put a lot of work into it to cement it. Yes.
It's interesting when I hear you say all this. On this platform, I've had other people come around and their parents happen to be one way or other into music and they decide to take the same path, So it's very interesting when we have a generation that is coming on that decide to follow the full steps of their parents. It's not in all situations that you see people go that direction. And I think that's quite something good. That you decide to go that direction.
Yeah, for me, actually, I did not decide to go into teaching.
Oh, okay.
But it happens that at some point in life, certain things will come to you naturally,
yes.
where you feel like, where did it come from?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So that's how it was for me, where, at some point I was in the classroom, my first year, and then I was actually helping other students in the classroom. That's when my professor actually was like, yo, this guy's good in mathematics and whatever else that he was doing. And not only good at it, but you have to be good at also translating the information to somebody else. So because teaching is different than just knowing what you know, the content, but it's also how you're doing it and you're translating this message to somebody else also to learn. So I was doing it without even thinking about it. So my professor actually was the one in New York City who was the one who said, well, look, I mean, you're doing very good. I love how you explain to other, to the other fellows in the classroom. And, I can even get you to get a job, doing this. And I said, wow.
Still a student.
When I'm still a student, beginning as a tutor, actually. So I said, wow, this is interesting. I was going to get paid for it. Can you imagine, as a young man, and then you'll be there out there and then getting paid and then doing these things is fantastic. And then also the challenge, I can just mention one challenge of it is because I, who came from Togo, of course, we speak French. Of course, we have our languages as well, but we speak French. And, so you go into New York City and then now you trying to tutor or teach in English. So you're learning the language. And yet you're trying to teach other, folks at the same time. So that was the challenge when it came to that. But I survived it, I guess.
All right, guys. So like I said, that's why we do some of these interviews that we do today. I'm in the house with the one and only Professor. Is it so Komlavi and Soweto and all those names? I don't think. Yes. I mean, whilst in school those days, have you ever had an issue of people trying to pronounce this your name?
Because of course, especially when you live in the West, you live in New York or you live in Germany. That has been students, that have been your colleagues. They always have a hard time to pronounce your name. But I put it on myself to actually teach them how it is pronounced. And I didn't want any other names to be called because it's me. I put a lot of respect to that name because as Africans our names have meanings to us. So once I begin to cut it, for me, it didn't reflect me anymore.
I see.
So I'm very keen when it comes to that, and I'm able and I'm willing to teach you how to pronounce it so that we can all learn from each other. The same way as I can say John, James, Wilson, Lawson, for example. You should be able to say Sewodo, Kujo, Komlavi. So for me, it's not that a brainer.
For me, I don't think it's much of a problem. I just feel like it's a lot. The Komnavi, the Kujo, and the Soweto, or whatever it is.
Yes.
But I guess I said it right.
Sewodo.
Yes. What's the meaning of Soweto, if I may ask?
Sewodo is an airway name.
Okay.
So it's an airway name that means God did well for me.
God did well.
So God did well for me. So if God did well for me, which is my name, I wanna keep it. And I've seen throughout my lifetime that God actually did well for me. So I want to keep it. I don't want people just to dash it and push it on the side because some people don't do it spitefully. But of course you want them also to learn. We're all here to learn from each other. So that's why I always be able to put them in that space and say no. This is how it is, and then it has a meaning for me.
All right, guys. So like I keep saying, if you're watching and you've heard this name before, or you've seen it somewhere, and you don't understand what it means, you just explain it. God did well for me. African names always come with meaning. So we are not throwing away our names for any reason. So yeah, still here with you. So it's interesting. Like I said, I saw your biography. Then looking at your age right now, which I'm 40, correct me if I'm wrong, 48.
Yes.
And saying you've been teaching for 20 years. Yeah. And so that I'm trying to ask myself, at which point did you become the professor? Because if we have to take 20 and do the minor subtraction, I think it looks like then around 27 years you became a professor, or like...
Yes, I actually began earlier comparing to a lot of other, colleagues. Okay. Like I was saying, and I think, I was good at it. Okay. So once I was spotted out, as transmitting these messages, in mathematics, for example, and doing it. So I was already pulled in. So I had a lot of great guidance, from my colleagues. Actually, one of them, Professor Pamela Randall, who is an American, an African American lady, who put me under her wings. So from there, it's just that I developed the skills of doing even more. So by 25 years old, I had my first class when I was 25 years old. To teach in the classroom. So yeah.
First class in.
Yeah, my first class to teach.
First class to teach?
Yes, my first class to teach, actually, I was, 25. For my first class to teach already, I was 25 years old.
Because it's interesting. Actually, you are the mathematician here, but because I'm just, even in Africa, the school system, by the time you are 18 years, that's when you are done with secondary school, going to university or college, that kind of a thing. So then I'm trying to
put it together.
Yeah, the years look so short. How
the thing
in
is
some countries it might even take somebody to get at age of 53 before become a professor. So that's what I hear.
10 years and whatever you name it. That's what I'm saying. That as you don't have to have your doctorate before you begin to teach. So that's one thing that people don't also know. You can begin to do it before even getting into being a doctor, getting your doctorate or whatever, or even your master's degree. With already your master's degree, you should be able to teach already. Before you can, talk about your doctorate and everything else. So I was already, because like I was saying, I started tutoring in 1999. So we're talking about 25 years ago.
Class,
Okay, so 25 years ago, I started tutoring already. So I was already gaining the experience. Then became an assistant, professor, and then before you become a professor teaching. So it's for mine was a little shorter. Like I was saying, starting in 1999 and getting to do the grinding, the work. Then you have to have the experience to be able to do it. So they throw it out in the classroom. Once you become an assistant, then you can become a professor, of course. So assistant, that means that you are assisting the professor in the classroom. So then you're already, seeing how it is done in the classroom, how to convey a class. And then you're helping the students. So you're learning how a curriculum is designed. You're learning how to convey the class itself. How to transmit the message. So I did that also. Plus, still, I was tutoring. And then after that now, I was offered, the teaching position. So I had, one at a time. So I had my first class, so one at a time. So you'll be tested, see how you're going to, take care of that class. And then with time now, you have to earn.
I'm only asking, pardon me, because from Africa, we come from a place, or how do we much more believe that it's not about what somebody can do on the field. Like, if I'm trying to find out, until you receive the documentation that you are now a professor, if you are doing the work, does that make you a professor already before getting the doctorate or whatever it is to make you to pronounce you a professor? That's what I'm trying to find out.
To get into. No, you have a doctorate. So, if you have a doctorate, for example, in teaching, area. So that's one thing. But being a professor, so let's say you professor, meaning you teach in the classroom, that also is something different. Okay, so it's like if you're a teacher, most of the time we talk about teacher, even teacher should be for everybody. For all of us, we are teachers. But a lot of times we call teachers, those who teach, for example, in primary, in middle school, in high school, we connect, the connotation is like it's a teacher. But actually we are all teachers. Now, for you now to have, the title of being a doctor, like a doctor professor. So that's something which is different. That's what I'm trying to say. So a professor, that means you are teaching, and most of the time we use it for the university level. Okay, even though, like I said again, we are still teachers, but we use it for the university level for professors. Then you get your doctorate, so now you're a doctor professor. So that's something different. So in the same time, so I was not, a doctor
by then. Okay.
So, so the thing is that now you're a professor because you're teaching in the classroom.
So once someone teaches in the classroom, that makes the person a professor?
Yes.
Well, that's interesting. You're hearing this for the first time here on LapoteeTV. Because
Yes.
I mean, personally for me, I used to think like you're saying, I mean, this is something that is a title, something that you get on a certificate for, you know, that kind of, you get on a certificate. So until you are awarded to it on a certificate, it's not a name that you can actually use.
Right.
You know, yeah. And
But
that brings me back, you know, like I said, we try to do our due diligence. When you told me, I checked on your bio, you sent me, and then something about you teaching in one of the universities, applied science here. Then I realized that they didn't put the professor name for you in that particular. And I'm like, okay, if this is a title that somebody holds, it should be attached to their name. And then I also check the business you have going on with your wife. I think they also didn't put the professor title. So what I'm saying, if someone is a professor, it's a name that whenever you write a person, it should be official.
Right.
That it's attached to their name.
To their name, yeah.
Yeah. So then that is why it's a bit confusing for me. So I want to know. So
okay. In terms of the business, you know, we try. You know, we try not to put the title.
Professor.
Yes. You know, because that's a business.
And
so,
in the school
you know,
too. In the school too.
I have it. I have the professor title. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's a different information, but
Yeah.
I put the name there, and I only saw it in the. Is it HRV or whatever they call it?
Yeah.
And then another thing, so I didn't understand. I know you did mathematics, economics, and finance, but it looks like you are in a different department, all the same in the school. So I don't know whether
the department in which I am in HAV, that's how we call it, you know, or HAW.
Yeah.
That's an international program of engineering in IT and electrical.
Okay.
So, but I do the math part of that department.
Okay.
So that means for the first semester, second semester students, math 1 and math 2 that they need in order to, you know, go further in other classes or subject. For example, they all need math. So if you're in engineering, you have to take math. As a matter of fact, when you are in university, math is essential for all of those. So I take care of the math part, you know, when it comes to, you know, the engineering program. So that's what I do, you know, in HAV. So I'm not full-time.
Okay, that's why they didn't add your professor to the name.
Probably, I don't know, but you know, I'm not a full-time there.
I will be concerned if I'm a professor and I'm teaching the school and they don't add the professor to it. Yeah. But anyways, that's just
you know, because you have, you know, because you have. Oh, now let me just because you're talking about then maybe when you have a professorship title, that one is a different thing also.
Okay, and that's what I guess.
Maybe that's what you were talking about. That's what I'm saying, that if you are teaching in a classroom, you're already a professor. That's one. Now, you can have also the professorship title. Okay. And that one is something totally different.
So which one do you have?
No, I have the classroom one.
Okay,
but not, you know, the professorship title. Okay. You know, that one, you know, where you have to pursue your, you know, education again, you know, after doctorate and all of those to get that. So that's one thing which is also there. But as far as you are teaching at the university level, you're a professor.
Oh, okay. And even with the university, I don't know, but I was just trying to find out, there's a difference between a college and a university.
Well, college, university, they a little bit, just a little bit. Okay. But let's take the U.S. for example. Okay. Now, when you talk about college, so for example, I taught at Monroe College in New York City, right? So college usually at the beginning was 2 years, or 4 years. Okay. Then you have the master's degree, then you have the PhD degree that is add up to it. But college also can have all the way to the PhD degree. So it's not just 2 years, you know, because some people, for example, say 2 years college. So that means first and second year. So that's one thing. Now you can have it to 4 years bachelor's degree, for example. In the US, bachelor's degree is 4 years. In Germany, for example, is 3 years. So those are differences. But still, it's a college level. So that's still university level. Now, when we say university, that's when you have a school and institution that has so many different kinds of disciplines. So that means you almost have every kind of discipline. That's when you are awarded most of the time the university title. But college, but again, there are colleges that also have near to all the disciplines. Yeah. So that's the difference. So sometimes when people talk about college, college is not just 2 years, but college today, for example, is 4 years, could be 5 to 6 years, that's master's degree, and even to the doctorate level. Now, as a college now, you can transit from being college to university level. Now you have to, of course, go to the government, your local government, your federal government, and they have to do their due diligence before they can award you the university title. So, for example, the Monroe College today is now Monroe University. Okay, so it's no more college, it's university, because now they work their way up, to include whatever they have to, and then get the certification and everything. So that's the difference between those two.
It's interesting. I was having a conversation with a friend. He said it's so interesting, but whilst we were growing up in school, we were being taught English. We never know we're going to end up in a country where we have to speak, Dutch and that kind of a thing.
Language.
What makes a whole professor leaves America and decides to settle in Germany? We just want to know.
Well, it's a journey. It was a journey for me. Of course, I was in the US, and there was a time where I decided actually to go to Togo. And, to do different things. As an African, as an immigrant, of course, one thing that we say to ourselves when we live in our countries is that we're going there, we're coming back with something. So there was a time for me that I was like, I have to go back. As being in the school, like I said, started earlier, learn how it is, teaching, looking at the school, business and everything else. And then work my way up to the ladder, because I was a chairperson of the math department at some point before I left. So to understand how it works.
Yes.
Okay, so my next question is, am I going to continue to do the same thing when I know where the problems are? And the problems are in our corners. Meaning in Africa. So all these skills that we're learning, if we are not able to translate that, to transmit that back home, to me, not everybody, but to me, for me, it's a failure. So at that time, I decided actually to go back home. So I decided to go back home and then start a school actually.
Started school.
So that was the plan, the vision, and everything else. Because for me, everything starts with education. And that's when, unfortunately, in Africa, not only in Africa, but in some part of it, we still have some ways to go. As you can see, until today, you have a lot of immigrants, a lot of Africans coming to this space because they want to pursue the education. So for me, it was not a way to go back. Because whatever we learn, whatever we're doing, it has to be transmitted back home. So I made that decision, to transit and then go back home. So now, my wife, for example, grew up here in Germany. And we had a baby. And unfortunately, for some, unforeseeable situations, I had to find myself, in Germany. So it was not in my plan to leave US and come into Germany. So that was the question. So it was not in the plan to leave, US and then come to Germany. So I found myself, in Germany, out of a situation, of course, for family. There was no question,
Life happens.
Life happens, and then you find yourself, and then somebody says that if life throws lemon to you, you have to make lemonade, out of it.
Yeah, that's right. It's good we got out of the way, because, like I said, for most Africans or most people, they always say that America is the land of opportunity. So it's not quite common to hear that someone moves from America and comes to Europe, let me put it that way. First of all, the language barrier is one thing, and other things, and like I said, and so that's why I decided to ask and find out, because someone who is watching, like, okay, who leaves America and come here?
I usually get this question, so I usually get that question. So I'm used to it.
Yeah, so still with you. So I want to find out, on this very platform, I've had the opportunity to interact with a couple of young kids that are born here, and sometimes one thing that's something that most of them normally say is that the system has not always been of aid to them, you know, in terms of academic performance and stuff like that. For you being in that circle, in that field, and having interaction and one-on-one with these kids, would you say to a large extent the system or educational system is to be blamed for the mishappening of the African kids based here in Europe, or it's just, let's say, their parents or the kids not putting in much effort? What would you say to that?
Well, if we can separate it into two, the way I'm looking at it. So you're talking about probably kids who were born here or who grew up here.
Yes.
Not the ones who are coming from Africa, you know, as adolescents already. So that one is different.
Those ones
okay, so yeah, I just wanted to clear that out first.
Yes.
Well, I think that many points, you know, can be drawn out of this. And of course, the environment, you know, is different. The environment is totally different. You know, for somebody who comes from Africa to Germany, for example, the environment is definitely different. Environment different meaning what? Like you said, the language is different. The interaction with people is different. The culture is different. The tradition is different. Now, the parents, now who come in, now the question also is that what is the level of, for example, education for the parent who comes in and then who is not able to guide their children to this level or that level? So that's also another question that something that we have to look into, okay? Because a lot of times the information is not there. Because you look at a system, it's all about the information that is out there. So for the parent who comes in, and the first thing is look and comes from a humble beginning. So that means you already have a lot of ties, you know, back home, in the families, and then you know how you move, you know, to this place. People already thinking that you are now in Abrochi, so that means you made it. For them, you made it already. So everybody is waiting for you to bring something to them. So in monetary wise. So you come in here, that means what? So that means you're working. Money, a lot of it, chunk of it staying here because, you know, out of your livings. And then of course, some part also is going home. Okay. So the thing is, sometimes they do not even have time for themselves to gather all the information needed in the system in order to actually move forward. So time is one issue. But the other also, of course, is the system. Like I said, I've heard from those who have been, for example, in Germany for a very long time, let's say 20 years plus, that when they even came here, for them to even learn the language was difficult. Because the system, at some point, for whatever the reason may be, did not really allow them, you know, to get into learning the language. Because don't forget, when you come into different places, the question is, why do you think that the people are allowing you to come in? They're giving you visas for what? And a lot of times from Africa, for a very long time, it was for people to come and then serve, you know, and doing the low wage, you know, works. So when you come in, then you have to learn the language and doing all of those things, and then you have a pushback. And then the culture and everything else, of course, is going to be difficult for those parents because we have to go from the parents before the kids. So those parents have not actually integrated the system the way they're supposed to. So integration is another issue. So are those people well integrated? But before integration happens, the people who are receiving you, that means where you are, they have to open up. Have they opened up enough for you to be able to integrate into the system? So those are questions that we have to ask. And then when you ask people who have been here for a very long time, they tell you that the system have not been open to them the way it's supposed to. Now, so that's one thing. So the next thing is for children, so they have to guide, because a lot of time we also make a mistake as parents, because we feel like when the kids go to school, the teacher is going to do their work. I'm an educator. So there's only few that I can do in the classroom when I see that child. But when that child goes back to a home. What is happening there? What's the interaction? Are they doing the homework assignment? Are they helping them out? Now, a parent who is not able to speak the language, we're talking about German language, for example, how much of work, homework assignment they can help out the children to get into. Now, that's one. The other one, the two is, now they themselves have not getting enough information to guide the children and say, look, it would be nice, Kofi, it would be nice for you to work more into the mathematics, for example, to work more on the science, to work more on this one, to work more on that discipline. So you have to have information yourself to be able to guide that child so that the child understand that, look, first of all, my daddy or my mommy, they're paying attention to what I'm doing, okay? And then second of all, they're guiding me through to the right path. So that's, the other part that you have to look into. So we cannot just fault the children because they have been, unfortunately, the produce of a system, all right? But now, as an adult, we can also say, okay, as an adult, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Now, let's also don't forget that success comes also out of character. So if you have not learned some of these things from the get-go, it becomes difficult, to develop it so that you can be able to make it happen. But as a person, as a human being, I will always say that, unfortunately, it falls down onto you as a grown person, as an adult.
Oh, okay.
Because people looking at you from outside will judge you through whatever they're seeing. So now the question would be for you yourself, is there anything else that you can do to make yourself better? Is there other courses that I can take to make things, better for myself? Now that you have the information, because now a child growing up as a grown person, now you understand the language, because if you're born here, you grew up here, now you have the language. Now you have to use that to your advantage, which is, let me use that now and gain information. And how now can I use that information? Now, if there's a training program that is out there, today we're talking about technology, IT, artificial intelligence. So the question would be for a lot of these young people, how can I still get into that field? What should I be able to do to get out there? Even if I don't go back to university, for example, in Germany here, I know you can go through Ausbildung, and from there, you can still work your way to go back to university level, at least, so that you can just say, okay, I also want to be very good when it comes to technology. Now we're talking about our kids, our young brothers and sisters. Today is a technology day. The question is, what are we doing for that? What can we all do together? What kind of information can we give them? What kind of mathematics, for example, do they need? I'm trying not to divert. What kind of, discipline do they need before they get to that level? So that's something that the community can also do. Of course, the parents still have to go and search, but a lot of those parents now, for somebody who's older, the parents now are, old, and that's not their worries anymore. So now we have to find the solutions.
So are you saying, in other words, the parents are not to blame for the kids not performing well and within the system?
It's a part of it. Yeah. The parents is a part of it, and the system is a part of it, which is as Africans, for example. Now, let's don't forget, as an African, a lot of times, you have to double your effort. In any system that you find yourself in the West, you're going to have to double your effort, because people looking at you are already putting you, at a lower, level. So it's for you to prove yourself. So that means the system already, in some ways, also can be, stacked against you because of the way you are already perceived. Because our people that's what I was saying before, are people open to you to come in and also learn and do these kinds of things? Are people ready? Is the system ready to do that? So, because, a lot of times, and that's where the frustration sets in for some of these young people. Because don't forget, if you're born here, you grew up here, speaking the language, you see yourself as German, or you see yourself at the same level as a German, for example, white. And then you find out that later on, there is this separation and division in the system. And this is something that I'm sure that even the political people, they have acknowledged it, that there is discrimination in the system. So if there's a discrimination in the system, it doesn't play in the favor of our kids, it doesn't play in the favor of, our young brothers and sisters. So that's also the other part. So we have the parents, we have also the system. But it's also starts with the system.
Okay,
Yes.
That's good. But so, like I said again, you be in that position right now, what do you think can really be done? Because like you said, or like we were saying, I don't know if I feel like the kids born here, they don't say like, we are at war, let me put it that way. The parents that come from Africa, they have to thrive, they have to push harder, settle bills, take care of certain things home. Is it to say that the kids are sometimes a bit kind of reluctant, relaxed, let me put it that way? Because if you know you're on the battlefield and there's something to fight for, seeing yourself as German, you're like, oh, if my parent is here and they're striving to do all these, even trying to put up something in African, the least I can do is, do better for myself. Like I'm saying, you are there. If we compare America to UK, look at the success rate of African kids and plus what we see here. How many times do you see an African kid drive a Range Rover here in Germany? You see, that's what we are talking about. But it's something quite common in UK. It's something quite common in America.
Yeah. Let's also don't forget that. And also, just to go back a little bit, the third point is, so I spoke about the system, the parent, and of course the individual.
Yes.
Because like I said, when you're a grown person, you have to begin to make some of these, and then be accountable to what you're going to become. Because at the end of the day, it's you, okay? Nobody else is going to be faulted, but it's you, because you'll be the one to make that journey all the way to your old days. So you have to make that, effort to, make some differences. So that's the third. So now let's put the things in context. If you take the US, for example, you have black people in general who have been there for a very long time. And a lot of them. So if you take the African community, for example, I think it's about 3 million, probably plus. Okay, and then Africans. I'm talking about Africans,
in Germany,
who came from Africa. Okay. In Europe, in Germany, for example, it's barely 1 million.
Yeah, that's
out of 85 million on population. So it's not a big community. It's not a big number. If you take UK, for example, France is more than 6 million. If you take the UK, for example, it's about also 4-5 million at least of them. So the number also counts. Okay, so the number counts in what sense? Is that, when you see your own also doing something, you also are drawn to do the same thing. Many times when I was in the US, even in Germany here, a lot of young people see me, they say, wow, you're a professor in the university. That means also I can also do something. Even if I'm not going to become a professor, I also can be something different or equally or more than that. So representation matters. Okay, so in Germany, for example, it's 1 million. So to begin with. So, but I'm not saying that with 1 million, we cannot do better. Okay, so I'm just putting that out there. Now, how do we do better is a community now issue. We have to have a well-organized community to be able to do that. Because like I was saying right now, when you look at Indians coming in, for example, and then first of all, they are well trained in the IT field before they come in. And then they come in to work, or they come in for university level, and then you have like probably minimum 50 to 60% of them who are coming in out of the whole immigrant who are coming in for that level. When you take the US, it's like 70% of them, of Indians are coming in terms of IT, level. So in that field, 70%, that's a lot. But the question is, how about us Africans? It's not that anybody else, is smarter than the other ones. African people are equally smart. Let me give you one tip here. In the US, for many, many years, when it came to higher education, for a very long time, Africans were number one. for a very long time. But the question is, how does it translate into the everyday life of an African in the U.S. or elsewhere?
Okay.
So the community has a lot of work to do. We all have a lot of work to do when it comes to that. And now us also, because the bridge also has to be, we need that bridge between those who are born here, who grew up here, and those also who are coming in. Because we are to learn from each other. Because at the end of the day, when somebody in Germany is looking at you, that you're born here or not, they look at you, you're African. That's what they're looking at. So they will treat you in that manner until probably you open your mouth and say, oh, probably he or she grew up here or was born here. But you'll be treated equally. So that we need that bridge between the two communities, because we can all learn from each other. If we don't do that, some of these things will always be there.
So in your opinion, what we need is a bridge between the two communities.
Yes,
yeah,
for sure.
Because it's quite interesting to always know that Africans always seems to be the least. I'm talking about here in Germany.
Yes.
And I don't know, sometimes when we do the comparison, like you said, it's not like we don't have only Indians here, they are Turkish. And if you begin to look back and we talk about the first settlers, the Africans who started coming here first, maybe say from the late 1960s or early 70s. Comparing to some of these Turkish students, but it's almost the same. So
it's the mindset. Mindset. The mindset is, today, unfortunately, I can say that. And then we are all into it. Okay, I'm not trying to pinpoint anybody or saying anything like that, but we are all into it. The unfortunate thing is that in our communities, we're still looking at just the individual, me. So it's just me. So as long as I make it, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But instead of looking at it as a group thing, and that's what Indians, Turkish, and everybody else they do, Chinese, they do. They move together. And that's one thing but African people, like the way our society has been built is actually a community society. Something happened somewhere in some time that made us become more individualistic instead of coming up as a group and saying, you know what, this is our issue. The issue that you're talking about right now, we should take it as all of us our own issue, which is how is it that our kids are born here and they are not doing well in school? What can we do to make a difference? What can we do for them to be in the IT field, in the artificial intelligence, in the sciences, in other fields that, today the society here is actually promoting. Germany, for example, is going left and right in other places to bring IT students in the nursing and everything else, but yet we have our own here as well.
All right, guys, so like I keep saying, there's not much to be said. The professor has said it all. It's all about the mindset. If you're an African and you are here in Germany, make sure you're part of the community. If we want to see that we're going to grow and go miles and do more than we are doing or the other foreigners that are based there are doing, we need to change the mindset. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Yes. So, yeah, it's good we're done with that. So let's talk about one thing too that is very common, this racism. Racism is, and it's very interesting. I'm talking about this racism thing. People talk about systematical racism, and I'm asking sometimes, is it that it's only Africans that are in Germany or Europe that experience it? Why is it always different with Africans when it comes to everything? It's just systematic racism against Africans here in you. Of course, you are there right now, so that's what I want to find out.
Well, I mean, it's all history. It's all history, and we need to own our own history, as Africans. And unfortunately, we found ourselves into a situation where people came to us looking for their own interests. Okay, so throughout slavery and then colonization, now neo-colonization, and all of those. So it's like all of that pile up made it in a way where, and on top of that, the identity crisis. Because don't forget, as even we are in Africa, even if you take our school curriculum, our education curriculum, a lot of it still until today has to do with what? With the West. China. And so we're learning about everybody else, not learning about our own. So a Ghanaian, for example, we know a lot about UK or US, the economy of UK, the economy of US, probably the economy of Germany, but no next to nothing to the economy of Ghana. So for that individual now to come here, so because in our mind, that's where we're going to make it.
Yes.
Because we've been, since day one, that's what, we've been taught. Because those are the legacy of colonization. All right? And then now when it comes to your question of why us, it's probably because we were the last one to leave that situation.
Oh, okay.
Because after independence in the 60s, we never really received our independence.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's the other issue. So until today, we're trying to fight. The African people are trying to fight their way out. So and some of the Africans in your countries, and I would say in general, they're doing not a bad job, but it's just that it's not enough. So that legacy made it so much so that as an African, when you go somewhere else, people are looking at you in a different way. You are already being pushed out of the system. So the systemic, racism, and then people in the U.S., for example, our people, who were taken, enslaved in the U.S., for example, were subjugated. Okay? And, subhuman level.
Okay.
That's how they were put.
Okay.
So racism was already there. So even in Europe here, some of our people also came here in Europe here. So we were, this fantasy kind of things for people in a way where, unfortunately, we still have that legacy dragging until today where people are still looking at us as if we are still at the bottom of the ladder. So it's up to us now. Because one thing that a lot of us and the younger generation especially don't know is this. The value of Africans, what Africans have done. Because now it depends on how we respond back to this racism that we're talking about. Is by going back and learning our true history. Because once you know who you are, nothing can stop you. And there is one saying in Africa that says that if you don't know where you're going, know where you came from. And that is missing in a lot of our people. Which is, we forget about where we came from, who we are, the value that we have, what we brought to this life, the civilizations that have been there, the kingdoms that have been there, in Africa before all of these things happened. So for 600 years at least, we have been, been in one spot for a very long time. So that's one of the, so that's also one of the reasons why we're finding ourselves into these kinds of situations. So the mindset has to change. We have to learn about history, our true history, of what the kingdoms, have done. The mathematics that were done in Africa, for example, we call something fractal mathematics. A lot of people don't know about fractal mathematics. That was done in Africa a very long time ago. And then when you talk about science, biology, when you talk about architecture, when you talk about agriculture, African people have been doing it for so long. So our people need to know about this so that when we come into these spaces, we know who we are. So that when somebody's trying to treat you in a different way, you say no.
No, it's interesting with all what you say. It looks like it's going to take forever to ever undone all this thing that Africans are going systematic racism and all those things. So it looks like it's not a battle ending today or tomorrow.
Not at all.
Anyways, guys, like you say, this is LapoteeTV, and you just heard it from the professor, like you said. If you don't know where you are going, sometimes know where you are coming from. Yeah, so he said it. So still here with you. So one thing I want to find out too, I noticed that you are into some kind of products. I think what's the name? Joavina. Yeah, that is the product you are in with your wife, like I said. And I want to find out, for you being someone that you are a mathematician, you are into financial field, and what's the last one? Economics, right? How successful can you say you are in terms of this business? Because for someone with that knowledge, somebody will automatically assume that once you go into a certain field in terms of it's definitely going to be successful. How successful would you say that product is going so far?
I would definitely say that we're following through with what we set it to do, because as a business you have to begin first.
Okay.
Learn. It's like a child. You have to crawl. You have to stand up. You have to sit. You have to stand up, and you have to walk. So we are in that space right now.
Okay.
So we've been successful in our first phase, which is to establish ourselves as a business, which means the product that we're selling, who are we selling to, when it comes to our partners, when I'm talking about partners, for example, our partners, back in Africa, for example, the ones that we getting the product from, or that we're working together with them, and the partners that we have here in Germany. So that means the boutiques, the shops that are selling our product, for example. So it's a 9-yard kind of work that you have to do to establish yourself as a brand, because it's different than if you are just taking somebody's product and selling. So now you are establishing yourself as a brand. So it takes a little more time to get things done, but we are there already. And now our next phase is to be able to scale up. Because because in business, you have to have that phase, of learning, grinding, doing what you have to do. And then after that, you establish yourself, know what you're doing. You have a cycle now of whatever you're doing already. Now you have to scale up. And that's where, you become very successful. But people, the good thing is that people are now being knowledgeable of the business, because sometimes when we go out there, we go to some of these product shows, and then people say, "Oh yeah, we know your product. We know you. We've seen you. We're using social media as well. So your adverts, have to be, off the park. Your marketing, has to be also off the park. You have to do all those things so that people now know who you are. So that and then you have to have returning customers, and that's one big thing that we have had, which is having returning customers. So Dravino Organics, for those who don't know, it's a organic cosmetic product that we sell, out of shea butter. So shea butter is our main product. Now we make different kinds of product out of shea butter products. So that's what we basically do, because we're also fighting, we're also fighting alongside with the climate change. Because remember, that's the reason why we're doing natural and organic product. Because we have seen, unfortunately, that our societies, especially in the West here, have overused, the nature in a way where now we find ourselves into serious issues with the CO2, with the plastic all around. And then don't forget, a lot of lotion product that we use today are out of plastics. And that is not healthy. But yet with Dravino Organics, we're trying to, invert the whole thing where it's natural and organic products. So that's what we're trying to do.
It's rather unfortunate that we don't have any of the products here, but I'm sure maybe for the next time we'll definitely have the product. But so it's rather interesting. I checked out your product and I couldn't see it on Amazon. So
yeah, that's something that we were almost there with Amazon, okay? Because we tried to get on Amazon and everything else, of course. So we're still working, in order to be, to have this partnership. Sorry, with Amazon. It's actually you have to have a partnership. So there's this application that you have to do and all of those things, okay? And then even sometimes they can allow you to put, your product in their shops where they gather the product. Yeah. So we went through all of those things. Okay. So we are coming. So no worries. No worries.
They are coming, because I have to mention it was quite surprising, because if anybody wants to buy anything in the first place, the first thing they want to check is Amazon. So let me ask you, Professor Kobna. When you say you are rich, let me ask, because for somebody who is a professor, people know that for once the person says he's a professor living in Europe and economy, the person must definitely be rich.
Right.
Will you say you are a rich person, if I should put it that way?
Well, it depends on what you call it rich. You mean rich, financially rich. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, we are all
because you can be rich. You can be rich in many ways.
Yes.
And then financial, of course, is just one part of being rich. Yes. Now, if I'm rich, it depends on what people will say, because I don't want to be the one to say, oh, okay, yeah, I'm rich or whatever. I'm fine. That's what I can say. Today I'm blessed. I'm fine that, my family and myself, we are fine. Okay. We have a roof on top of our head. We can commute. We can dress. we can eat well and things like that. We can travel. So I think that we are fine.
For you, that's been
yeah. So I can't say that we're rich, but we are fine.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I got one more thing I want to find out from you. I should have asked from the beginning. One thing I've noticed, or people say that if you were somebody and you study in the field or whatever, and you are coming to Germany or Europe and you want to study in the same space or you want to work in the same space, it's quite challenging. How were you able to, do that transition, teaching as a professor in America, and still be able to teach as a professor here in Germany?
Well, you also have to understand that the problem that that has been around is that when you're coming from, let's say, a country in Africa, Togo, Ghana, Nigeria, or so and so. So whenever you have your degree in one area, you come in here, they're going to have to evaluate it. And unfortunately, a lot of times, when we talk about this kind of discrimination sometimes, people view our certificates or diploma, they don't view it the same way as how they view, for example, a diploma coming from the US. So for me, it was easier because my diploma, came from US. Okay. So it's easier for me to come, to come through, Germany, for example, and being recognized, throughout my diploma, for example. So that's where the difference is. And then also, of course, I'm teaching in English. So not in German language. So that's also the difference, for me. So for somebody who's coming from Togo, Ghana, Nigeria, for example, or Kenya, for example, they might have a more different, approach, and they might have a different approach with them, and then recognizing whatever they did, because there's a standard that is established everywhere else. And between US and America, between Germany and US, for example, that has been established already. So, or Europe, for example, that has been established. So I would definitely say that, I'm one of those privileged, if I can call it like that, where, then it's easier, for me to blend in into the system here. And I've been there for a very long time also, 20 years. So I know the culture, how it works, the tradition and everything else. So it's easy just to blend in, to integrate. That somebody who's coming fresh from home, coming in here. So it's more like the whole 9 yards. You have to really get into it. Yes.
All right, guys. So you heard it from the professor. It depends on where you're coming from. If you are an African and you are coming from Africa with a degree, it's going to be a different thing compared to someone coming from America that is having a degree. And like he said too, it's more easier and flexible for him because he's also teaching English. It's not like he has to teach something in German or that kind of a thing. Yeah.
And can I add one more thing to that? Which is also now also there are fields. Now you mentioned field, so let me just add to what I said so that it can be complete. Because we're talking about field. So the field of IT today, for example, is well recognized from Africa to Germany. So nursing, for example, also is been recognized. The only thing that you need for some of the fields like nursing is the language, is the German language. But for IT, you do not need, the German language. So with IT, if you speak in English, you're good. So, and then you're in IT, you get your certificate, your diploma, it's easy also for you to get it. But there are some other areas. So let's say becoming a medical doctor, then it's very difficult. So the standards are not the same. So they will find any ways not to get you in the system. So it's also the field.
All right, guys. This information at first hand from the professor himself. Anytime someone comes to the show, I always say we cannot take one day to talk about everything. I know you're already doing a lot in the community for the kids, which will be a topic for another day show. But in case any African kid or is watching here and is based in Europe, Germany, and is having any challenge in terms of what we discussed, like trying to find themselves up the ladder, what are you going to say to them if they are watching this interview?
Well, what I would say definitely is that, first of all, get the right people to give you the right information. That's number one, because information is king. Okay, if you get the right information, whatever somebody did in 10 years, you come here, you can do in 5 years. So you got to get the right information and the people to get to do it. So, for example, I began this. So we can talk about another time, but I began this project. With YouTube. So I'm on social media, Facebook, and everything, and the name is Prof. Cum Laude, Math for Fun. For example, so I began it by doing mathematics. Okay, because throughout the 20 plus years of my experience, I've seen that many people, unfortunately, it's not that they cannot do the math but it's because of the fear of the name. Or the fear of a friend or somebody who say, or parent who say, oh, I don't deal with math, I don't like math. So that people, unfortunately, get that sink in and do not even try anymore. I've seen it many, many times because, even some of my former students can tell you, whenever we sit down and work together, we always get it right. So I would say that get the right people. So now that I'm on social media and everything else, you can, of course, contact me and ask questions. As a matter of fact, 2 days ago, I had a friend who called me up and then was asking me some of these questions, how somebody can come from Hope to get in, what they can do and things like that. So we have a lengthy discussions. So, and I have to tell you how it is. Now, it's not like you're just walking in a park. Okay? So it's not as easy as how we think it is all the time. But if you get the right information to begin with, then you can just save time, save money to get inside and then, get going. So for people who are listening, young people, for example, I would say one subject that you can always get yourself to acclimate with is mathematics. We began from the lower level, foundation, and we're going all the way up to the engineering level. You have some of the subjects there as well. So please get back to that, because if you go into so many different areas, because math is into every single kind of disciplines, industries. So I've seen it and I know it. So even if you're doing business, you're doing finance, you're doing IT, you're doing health, you're doing science, other science.
You're doing
you
media.
have to do that. So I would say
there is a mass here. There's something they call 180-degree rule in shooting. So
that's it. Yes, that's it. So we see the application right now.
Yes.
So we, the math is applied into all of these industries. So that I would say that to all of you guys who are watching us right now, make sure that you get to my YouTube channel and all the other social media as well, so that you can begin to do this thing, because it's free, at least for now. But we'll talk about it later. But in any case, guys, get in touch with the right people. That's what I would say. That's the first thing. Don't say, oh, my friend, my whomever who's doing whatever said this, said that, because we love to hear what other people say a lot and take it, as a Bible, as a Quran, and then run with it. So we have to be very careful. Get it from the right sources and be open-minded to get the truth, however the truth is. Even if it's the bitter truth, take that bitter truth and then work with it. It's better.
Okay. Once again, I'll say it's nice having you on LapoteeTV.
Thank you so much, Jay.
Yeah, there's not much I can add to that. The professor has said it all. So, like he said, get the right information. There's not much to be said. So, once again, thanks for watching. Have a nice time. Bye-bye. Bye.